Hey, how's it going everybody? My name is Artorigold, and today I'd like to talk about the meta. So recently we saw Sigma and Rollock hit, and the meta has really developed, especially at a higher rank, and I kind of want to talk about how we've gotten to this point. So first off, with Sigma being introduced, a very fun character, but he has a shield. And so basically what's happened now is we see a lot of Sigma combined with Orisa to be this double shield strategy. Now with Rollock being introduced, it has made double shield actually very powerful. It used to not be so much of an issue because there were a lot of counters to it. Without people being locked to a certain role, people could go goats, people could go quad DPS and kind of flank all over the place, and you can really kind of avoid all of these shields. As you can see in this clip, it's kind of insane. It's almost like triple shield because people are also playing Symetra, which is basically the counter to double shield, but also it just adds basically a third shield to the entire fight. And I'm going to go over a little bit with what happens in some of these gameplay clips. For example, in this one, it is pretty messy when you look at it. So first off in this clip, you see there's Sigma and Orisa on both teams, and there aren't really too many ways to counter this except for maybe another shield with Symetra's ultimate. And since you can't really go like Bastion or Junkrat, and maybe I could get into why you can't do that in the first place, you can see that there's just not enough damage to really push through these shields. It's really difficult for a lot of players to kind of deal with this. The meta is actually changing for the healers as well because Moira, her heals and her orbs and her ultimate, it can go through shields, making her a lot more effective in this kind of meta. But as you can see, it is really messy. I mean, we have my Orisa shield here, we have the Symetra shield here, we have another Symetra shield going this way, and an Orisa shield here, and then there's also Sigma shield somewhere out there, I don't know what. And while all these shields are happening, we also have Symetra turrets here that are melting people or just shooting at the shields. And it's really difficult as, especially a tank player, but other roles really, where to position yourself is really difficult. Now this kind of meta isn't being seen everywhere in the game. It's really only being seen maybe like, 4,200 plus. Right here I'm like 4,300 in this game. And everybody is playing Symetra. So I kind of want to explain why Symetra is being played. I think a lot of players would think maybe why don't you go Bastion or Junkrat? And the really weird thing about that is that they actually don't have enough DPS output. For example, Junkrat, he can shoot those grenades out and he can shoot the mines out, and it's not going to be enough to break through the barriers. Mostly because Orisa's shield, unlike Sigma's or Reinhardt's, it's based around a cooldown rather than just like recharging it naturally by putting the shield away. As soon as that cooldown is up, Orisa puts up a brand new 900 health barrier, making it very easy, very expendable, and it's very difficult for DPS players to kind of get through that. And Bastion, for the same reason, can't melt through these shields because of Sigma and his grasp. It's basically like another defense matrix, and if you can time it properly, it pretty much melts all of Bastion's damage, or just completely it's gone, right? There is no damage. And at that point, if you're able to use grasp properly as Sigma, you can close that gap and get right up close to the Bastion and kill him. Another big part about that is that Sigma's rock, I believe, actually stuns and knocks him out of the turret form, which is also a really big counter to Bastion. So all around, there's just a lot of difficulty playing those heroes. And so what people have really come up with is the strategy of using Symetra. Now, not only does this put up another wall, but really the biggest reason is her left click. So when Symetra shoots her left click, the beam gets stronger and it ramps up. Normally this only works if it's shooting at enemy players, but they made it so it also works against barriers. So if you're just holding down left click at a barrier, your beam will just get ramped up to max, and it's very easy to get the damage that you need in order to melt through people. But that's not the only thing. You also have your ammo. You never have to reload. As long as you hold down left click on a shield, you don't have to reload, and it kind of just gives you the ammo naturally. It's very weird, and it basically means that you don't have that downtime of reloading, which can be normally pretty devastating for a hero like Bastion. And now that you have her teleporter, you can maybe come up with some interesting strategies with the teleporter, but mostly it's people just kind of closing the gap and just using it to get onto the point or right onto the enemy. And there really isn't much to say about that. But also you have things such as her shield, her ultimate, and her ultimate is just adding another layer of barriers that we already have, making the double shield strategy kind of into a triple shield strategy. So all around, the meta is this very awkward, weird spot, mostly because of Rollock. Like I said before, if you had quad DPS or even triple DPS, you can kind of just have all these DPS heroes that are really good at flanking, and you can kind of just go around and hit them from all these different sides. So one of the other strategies that a lot of people are doing to counter this meta that I like to talk about is Doomfist. So obviously with Doomfist, if you just go in and punch them, then you don't have to worry about shooting them because you're going to go through the barriers. So Doomfist is kind of always been strong even through his nerfs just because he has a lot of crowd control, a lot of survivability, mobility, and he also just does a lot of damage. He has, the potential to one-shot anybody. So he bypasses all of the shields, and a lot of people are playing kind of the Symetra or Doomfist as counters to this double shield strategy, but it doesn't always work. Doomfist can be really annoying, mostly for Sigma, but if the Doomfist is focusing on the Orisa, it's not going to do anything because of her fortifiability. Another thing I'd like to mention is they actually did nerf Symetra, but it didn't really solve anything, and it still makes her pretty powerful against this team comp. And it's really difficult for 2CP maps especially to deal with this strategy. 2CP has always been a really difficult kind of situation. Like when you need to go and capture a point on 2CP, it is very difficult. And Symetra's turrets along with the double shields make it very hard for teams to move forward. And that's also another reason why people are running the Symetra and Doomfist, because they can kind of engage with the teleporter or with their mobility, their punch or their E or whatever, the seismic slam, and they can really engage just kind of naturally a lot better and kind of avoid the shields or the turrets. This also makes a lot of the other heroes kind of useless. You think about heroes like Soldier 76 or McCree, these hit scan heroes. They don't have the DPS output to go through the double shields, and they also don't have the mobility to move around it. So generally when dealing with this strategy, you want to try and focus on using flankers. If you can, use Doomfist. He's very powerful, just get in, get out, and you can maybe get a one-shot off on someone. And another one is Tracer. Recently with the Pulse Bomb being buffed on Tracer, it makes her very powerful as an option. Genji Blade, however, is kind of weak against this. Orisa can pull you, you have Sigma that can hit you with a rock, you also have things like Symetra if they're on the enemy team, the turrets are going to slow you down, and then you have to worry about the supports who might have defensive ultimates. In this fight, there are so many things happening, it's really hard to tell who you should be shooting at, where you should be positioned. I mean, there's just so much things happening on the screen, and it's really difficult for any player, not just you as a main tank player, but for a healer or a DPS, to really find out what the right call is. I mean, you see people that are antied, but there's like 3 shields. You got shields right here, here, and here. You have turrets you have to worry about. It's really difficult to figure out what's happening on the screen. As a player, I think it's very frustrating, and I think they need to try and bring this kind of stuff down a little bit and get Overwatch back to its roots. Because right now, I don't think a lot of people enjoy having all these shields and lasers, turrets, and deployables happening, and a lot of people are being frustrated with it at the moment. So I would be really happy to see them maybe buff the DPS heroes like Junkrat or something and make them do bonus damage to shields, or maybe just bring back the shields in general and nerf those. Maybe rework Symetra and get rid of her ultimate, because her ultimate is probably the most frustrating thing. I don't even think that her left click damage being ramped up against shields is all that bad. I think that's a pretty decent thing for her to have. I think just adding that third shield is where it gets really cluttered and complicated, and it's very difficult as a player to make the right play in this moment. Really, the only thing you should do, I guess, that I've learned to do is to just stay behind the shield, and whatever enemy moves past that shield, then you kill them and focus them first, and that's really the play. But of course, that's because I'm on defense. If I was on offense, this would be very difficult to try and get past, and most likely it will be a wipe. Depending on how the shields are positioned, there's really nothing you can do. It's just depending on where the Symetra wall is, and you just have to play around it. Anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to talk about, a little bit about the double shield meta. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments below. Please let me hear it. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.